CIA Director Mike Pompeo was on Capitol Hill today testifying at his confirmation hearing for Secretary of State. In a tweet this morning, the president sent his well wishes, saying, quote, "He will be a great Secretary of State." Pompeo thanked the president for his support, but faced tough questions from senators on numerous topics, including Russia, Iran, China, and North Korea. The former Republican congressman from Kansas has a reputation for being a foreign policy hawk, and some fear he could push the president into war. Pompeo pushed back on those concerns.
I know some of you've read the story is I'm a hawk, I'm a hardliner, or, I read that and there's no one, as you just heard in what I described, there's no one like someone who served in uniform, who understands the value of diplomacy and the terror and tragedy that is war. Like someone who served in uniform. It's the last resort. It must always be so. And I intend to work to achieve the president's policies with diplomacy, rather by sending our young men and women to war. But the best outcomes are always won at the diplomatic table.
CBS News State Department reporter Kylie Atwood is in Washington and joins me now. Kylie, what did Pompeo say about the U.S. approach to dealing with Russia?
Yeah, so Pompeo has come out pretty forcefully against Russia in this hearing. He said that the fraught U.S.-Russia relationship is based on Russia's bad behavior, not turning it around on the U.S. at all, blaming it all on Russia, and saying that they present an ongoing national security threat to the U.S. He also said that they did violate the 2016 presidential elections, and that Pompeo plans to take a backseat to no one when it comes to maintaining pressure against Russia as it continues to destabilize its relationship with the U.S. and worldwide.
Kylie, many senators also seem to be concerned about whether Pompeo was too hawkish and whether he was, as one senator put it, forming a war cabinet. What do you make of those concerns? Are they legitimate?
Yeah, so that's been a major focal point here. And Pompeo said that the best outcomes are delivered at the diplomatic table. And he has again and again said that he will stand by the diplomatic corps at the State Department to enable them to do their work. And so he was asked about, the U.S. and a preemptive strike on North Korea, and he came back to the fact that the U.S. is leading a pressure campaign against North Korea right now, which they will continue to do. And he said he talked a little bit about the expectations for the Trump-Kim Jong-un meeting that we expect to happen at some point in May or June. And he said that the goal of those talks would be to develop an agreement with North Korean leadership so that the North Korean leadership steps away from presenting a risk to the U.S. with its nuclear weapons. So again, he's not saying that a directed military strike on North Korea is front and center in his mind right now as he's heading into this possible appointment as Secretary of State.
I think something that a lot of senators wanted to hear from him. All right, so several senators also pressed Pompeo about the Mueller investigation. How did Pompeo respond, and do you think his responses satisfy the senators who asked him about it?
Yeah, so we heard in this from the get-go, Senator Menendez questioning Pompeo about this Mueller investigation and specifically putting him on the spot regarding a conversation he allegedly had with President Trump in the Oval Office about the investigation. And while Pompeo wouldn't answer any specific questions about that conversation, he said that he has, in fact, been interviewed by the special counsel and that he is agreeing to provide any information that they need or that the certain committees that are investigating the Russian meddling need from him. And so he said he's in compliance. He didn't give any details, though. And when prompted to describe a little bit more about his conversations, he basically said that these are complex legal issues. He also notably would not say that this investigation is not an attack on America. He said, as I said earlier, that it's a complex legal situation and it's a minefield. He didn't want to go there. And so he's really trying to absolve himself from these conversations. But these senators are worried about him keeping conversations from them that he's had with the president, especially if he's Secretary of State and discussing foreign policy issues. They come to him, want to talk to him about those foreign policy issues, and he doesn't disclose his private conversations with the president.
Right. And notably, also, when he was asked whether he agreed with the president's tweet that the Mueller investigation was adding to the tension between the U.S. and Russia, he said he did not agree. He said Russia's actions were contributing to that tension.
Exactly. Right.
All right. So, Kylie, we are 1 month away from an Iran nuclear deal deadline, and Pompeo was asked whether the U.S. should pull out. Let's take a listen.
I want to fix this deal. That's the objective. I think that's in the best interest of the United States of America.
But if the agreement cannot be changed, my question is pretty simple. We're running very close to a deadline on certification. What is your view? Is it better to pull out of an agreement that Iran is in compliance with if we can't fix it? Or is it better to stay in the agreement? As the
Senator,
yes or no?
No, Senator, it's not a yes or no question because it's a hypothetical. We're not at that point. Let me tell you, I'll
the
think
president
about it.
has to certify on May the 12th.
Yes, sir. That's yet almost a month away. It depends clearly. If we're close, imagine just as a hypothetical matter, imagine we're close to achieving the fix that the president has asked the State Department to achieve. If we're close, if there's some opportunity,
you pull out
in the event that we conclude that we can't fix this deal, that these serious shortcomings that you, Senator Cardin, yourself have identified, then the president is going to be given best advice, including by me. And if there's no chance that we can fix it, I will recommend to the president that we do our level best to work with our allies to achieve a better outcome and a better deal.
Kylie, is there any real optimism of fixing the Iran deal in the coming weeks?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, and most people who know anything about where Pompeo traditionally stands on this deal would say no. He is the nail in the coffin, if you will, on the Iran deal. But here he's telling senators that he's going to try and fix the deal. Now, that requires a number of changes made by European countries to the deal, and they're not willing to make all of those changes. The U.S. actually just had their 4th meeting with European countries yesterday here in Washington to discuss the changes that the President Trump laid out in January that he wants to see Europeans make. And so we're going to have to see how this evolves over the next month. The deadline is indeed May 12th, when the president can decide that it wants to reimpose sanctions on Iran that the Iran deal took off of Iran. And that is going to be the date to watch. Now, Pompeo is saying that he's going to work to try and fix the deal, which is big. It's not exactly what everyone expected him to say, but it's going to depend on what happens over the next few weeks. I also want to point out that Pompeo said that he didn't think that Iran is going to get out of the deal even if the U.S. does. And that is really significant. He said that the deal is in the interest, the economic interest of Iran. And so if the U.S. is making that bet, it's a pretty big bet. It might convince them that they could leave the deal, Iran would stay in the deal, and it would still control Iran's nuclear capabilities without the U.S. looking like they were folding over and not following through on, promises that Trump has made to get out of the deal.
Indeed. Kylie Atwood in Washington, thank you.